Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room and murdered because his security, his whistleblowing blower protection security detail failed to show up. There was a security breach and he wasn't protected as a whistleblower. And we believe that that security breach was orchestrated. Um, it can be with complacency, but because the SOPs were not being followed, there was so much complacency, then that means it was orchestrated because that was allowed to happen. Remember that on Fort Bliss, a 14-year-old girl was living in the barracks for, I believe, months. Let's just say weeks, just to be careful. But I think it was longer than that. And we know that because DES Thomas Kane admitted to that. It was in the newspaper. And we know that the 14-year-old girl that was being pimped out to um, soldiers in the barracks, which tells you how the SOP, the standard operating procedures that needed to be followed for the barracks, were being broken, and it was very complacent, to say the least. Um, and that girl was being pimped out, and she was the daughter, and she might have been 12. I need to go back and check, but I just want to be safe because I know that there was also a girl of the same age being pimped out at Camp Pendleton in California. Um, on in the barracks, in the on the military installation, and we know that that was the stepdaughter of a security officer um, under uh, Directorate of Emergency Services for Fort Bliss, Thomas Kane. We know that. Um, so, the problem, the point that I want to make today, and you're going to see it in this discussion, is about the Walmart mass shooting. And the Walmart mass shooting, of course, this is the anniversary today, August 3rd, 2019. I'm coming on a little bit earlier today. Woohoo, yay. Um, and, all day long, you can't, if you're in the situation that we're in, and you know that Richard's murder is connected to the Walmart mass shooting, and you know that the Walmart mass shooting case has been put on, like in cold case, right? They wanted to put it in cold case, and they paid a lot of lip service. And we know from Loretta Lynn Hewitt, the amazing, courageous attorney that was hired by the 34th Judicial District Attorney's Office to uh, to prosecute the Walmart mass shooting case, was told not to do anything. Not to do anything, that case is to do nothing. And this is not me saying it. This is her in an interview. She was told, and I think she put the Diaz and John Briggs, and of course the usurper, trespasser, impersonator Bill Hicks, telling her that case, the Walmart mass shooting case, is only to be used for political reelection. Um, wowzer. Wow, really? So they want to pay lip service to all the families that have suffered so much in the loss of their loved ones, and yet they want to keep it totally on ice, not do one thing, and yet charge the people of Texas and El Paso millions of dollars to keep it going because it costs a lot of money to keep these cases going. Um, and so they charge for doing just keeping it on ice. We're going to hire you, but that case you don't do anything with. That's what Loretta Lynn Hewitt was told. That is playing politics with a mass murder, a mass shooting case that absolutely shook El Paso. How could it not? And we have some inside information just because we've been doing this day in and day out for 4 years to find out what happened to Richard, our son. And so I want to tell the people of El Paso, we believe that Richard's case came before the Walmart mass shooting. We know that his file came first. His file did not begin with him going missing. He had a file already. He already shook Fort Bliss up. Okay? And it was before the Walmart mass shooting. That's what we believe. And what do we mean by this? We mean that he was collecting evidence and filing criminal complaints or complaints to the IG, to the FBI Houston, to the Child Protective Services, to Washington, D.C., to the CID before the Walmart mass shooting. Now, was he doing all of that before the Walmart mass shooting? You know, I think he was doing the Child Protective Services first. But, we're going to get to the bottom of this to let everyone know what he was. We know, we also believe that he went to the IG before the Walmart mass shooting. You know, from what we know, it probably was all of it. But because the IG, quote, the IG were all over the barracks because of Halliday. And we know from the generals and the CID that they were under audit, that they were under the scope, that they were under investigation because the barracks were flush with weapons. The barracks were flush with weapons. So you just, and they don't even mean to tell you these things. You have to pay attention. You have to just document and record everything in a journal, however you can do it. When something like this happens, the first thing you do is start documenting. And then you can go back and look at it and make some sense out of it. And, with the 14-year-old girl, maybe she was 12, being pimped out on the barracks with Command Sergeant Major la-di-da telling us this. La-di-da, like it was no big deal that they were bringing girls in during the COVID onto Fort Bliss to party with the soldiers because the soldiers had a morale problem and they needed to bring these girls in. And the girls, we have corroborating testimony that the girls were there waiting at the gate. The gate was closed because of COVID, but they had sent cars there. And the girls were waiting, and a few girls would get in a car and take off, and then another car would come, and a few more girls would get into the car, and they would go on to post. And, they weren't telling the girls that they had to stand 6 feet apart, that they had to wear a mask, that they had to, whatever. Not what are they going to do? Chaperone? Did Command Sergeant Major Jake Jakovitz chaperone these parties, right? To make sure that they weren't swapping any kind of contagion. Um, you know, it was just so ludicrous because you could tell that the leadership absolutely knew that it was a farce, that the COVID was a farce. Um, that's how they went about it. And he was telling us la di da. And what that means is, and even CID said, oh, they were complacent. It's no big deal. They were complacent. No, the SOPs, the standard operating procedures, are there for a reason. And, we don't want 14-year-old girls to be pimped out living in the barracks because the pimping out we know from The Sound of Freedom, that movie, it's terrible. It's way more than once every night. Um, and it is absolutely torture. It's absolutely child abuse. But what they were doing, and we know this, because we know this with Dallas Hart. He was hunting for the child pornography. And we know that Leilani Hart said that her household was in possession of child pornography. So they were selling, they were creating, they were producing and selling this child pornography, in my opinion. In my opinion. And it's a lot, it's absolutely disgraceful that on our military installations we have that kind of business going on. Absolutely disgraceful. Now, I've been told, oh, things like that have been going on for a long time, for decades and everything like that. And I don't care. I don't care. It's absolutely disgraceful. This is our taxpayers' money, and this is what's going on. Hell no. It's about time someone stood up to this, you know, and I hope that you join us in standing up to this exploitation of our soldiers, exploitation of our young daughters. No, and up to no good. No, we're never going to win a war with that kind of complacency, with no discipline. And we know from the soldier that um, went and fought in Ukraine and then um, left Ukraine to what do you call that? To go over to Russia, to defect, right? He defected over to Russia. He was from El Paso. He was from Fort Bliss. Where was the esprit de corps? He said he spent over 2 years at Fort Bliss and he just stayed drunk all the time. That's what he said in his interview. Where was the discipline? Where was the esprit de corps? Where was the patriotism, the purpose? Would he have ever defected if Fort Bliss would have done their job to train our soldiers, to give them a pride, true pride, not an evil pride, a true pride for their uniform, for their country, and esprit de corps, for their guidon, which we know for a fact that the guidon was not being respected. Richard had to go hunt for the guidon. He was telling my dad that they were not respecting the guidon. A unit doesn't go anywhere without the guidon leading them. So my dad was appalled by what he heard Richard saying about the guidon. So we know that there was Um, breaches in security. Breaches in security on purpose. Okay, so let's say it like this. Orchestrated breaches of security to harm us, to weaken us. And Richard was reporting on why they wanted to weaken us and harm us, because they used our military installation to further their criminal networking businesses, their criminal trafficking. This is there is no other reason. You see, when you have the evidence over and over and over again that there is criminal trafficking going on our military installations, or through them, and using our government officials, and that it is orchestrated. Eddie Nieto, the supervisory director for the FBI, he wasn't there by accident. And his wife, Cynthia Nieto Hernandez, she wasn't there by accident. And Marlon Soto Hernandez wasn't in his place by accident. And Jesus Melendez, the canine cop, wasn't in his situation by accident. And those at KTSM were not there by accident. And those at El Paso Matters were not there by accident. And those at the Real Fit Fam El Paso, Fit Fam El Paso LLC, on Instagram, social media, they weren't there by accident. And it goes into the IG. It goes into, of course, Department of Homeland Security. It goes to Bliss Avenue. Bliss Avenue. Bliss Avenue revealed a lot because it absolutely connected and still is connecting so many dots with Danae Katzen, with Jonathan Ambrose, with KTSM, with the chief medical examiner, Mario Raskin Ortiz, connecting dots with, of course, Veronica Escobar and Joanne Bernal, connecting dots with lawyers, a lawyer in the Walmart case, connecting dots with the Mormon church, the Mormon congregation. Bliss Avenue connects Richard's case with the Walmart mass shooting. And in a way it's all going to come out because of the victims, and remembering the victims and remembering who the victims are and who they're connected to. And Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia is connected to 3905 Bliss Avenue. And, when you see that this Walmart mass shooting was orchestrated, it was allowed to happen. It was, another thing that a lot of people don't know about the Walmart mass shooting is that the Walmart Corporation had gotten a tip that something was going to happen at the Cielo Vista Mall, that the Cielo Vista Walmart, that there was some threatening suspicion. And so they sent hundreds of thousands of dollars to that Walmart for security. But it was never used for security. There was not one security guard in that Walmart. And remember, Walmart sells weapons. Walmart sells ammunition. Walmart absolutely needs to have a security guard. When you sell weapons and ammunition and the company is sending hundreds of thousands of dollars um, to secure, to protect people, and the manager doesn't do that, who's the manager? And why not? And why was there not one opposition to the criminals? Not one security guard to oppose the criminals that day. And yes, I say criminals. It was more than one. We know by witness testimony over and over and over again that there was more than one shooter. And they are allowed to go walk. They're walking free. They're walking free. And Patrick Crucius is 5 years in isolation with not even a mental health evaluation, which is absolutely disgraceful and a travesty. But it also, when you sit back and you think about it, it's allowed to happen. Why? So you have Richard's case coming first, where he is reporting all kinds of criminality with evidence, and we know through the generals and the CID and the IG are all over the barracks because of Halliday that there was audits going on and everything. And we believe that one of the reasons, not the only reason, but one of the reasons why they orchestrated the Walmart mass shooting is to divert attention from the complaints that Richard had filed, to divert attention from the investigations, from the complaints that Richard had filed. We believe that. And that's why the people involved in the Walmart mass shooting are involved in Richard's case. That's why. And there's, of course, this connection with Bliss Avenue. And there's breaches in both cases of security. Now, if we were a very, very poor country and we weren't spending a lot of money on security and safety, then okay, maybe this would make a little bit of sense. But it is absolutely absurd to put forth as an excuse a breach of security, a complacency, and think that we're going to buy that. We spend so much money for security, safety, health and security, every kind of security. Look just at Richard's task force find Richard Halliday first meeting. There were over 15 agencies. We're talking about Department of Homeland Security, Department of Justice, the CID, the El Paso Police Department, the sheriffs, the marshals, the DES, the DEA. I mean, the Mexican military, the Mexican government, ATF was there. I mean, I could go on and on. On and on. And those are all for our safety and security, to restrain criminal activity, to restrain and to divert or stop as well as they can criminal activity. And yet, the murder of Richard happened. The Walmart mass shooting happened. Even with the corporation putting forth hundreds of thousands of dollars, and then with all of our taxpayers' money going to security, it still was allowed to happen. And it was orchestrated. It was an orchestrated mass shooting. And the people are who the people are that are involved in this, and we've connected the dots. And there are extreme conflicts of interest that the only thing that explains the conflicts of interest, and Bliss Avenue is a big example of that, is that it's orchestrated. There's it's there's no other reasonable reality when you look at all of the evidence. And it's the same thing with Richard. There's no other reasonable outcome. That's why the government admitted that Richard was murdered on Fort Bliss, because there was no other reasonable outcome for when you looked at all of the evidence that we provided to the Board of Inquiry. Not the sanitized, tampered with CID file that Bob Moore wants to say is legitimate, when we have on record by the national level CID that it is tampered with, that it is botched, that CID file. So, Bob Moore is clearly wrong, and we are pursuing that. He's clearly wrong because he wants to smear our son and smear our family, because he wants to divert the attention off of off of the accountability and off of the real perpetrators. And I can tell you who those real perpetrators are. They are a rogue criminal breakaway group. A rogue criminal breakaway group from the original response teams for the Walmart case, for Richard's case, and now we know that that same pattern is being used with the Butler, Pennsylvania assassination attempt on President Trump. We've been very interested in the citizen investigation of because the response team has botched the investigation already. They have failed to tell us where the hardware went. When you shoot a weapon, you have hardware that flies, right? What are those shells? The shells fly. Where are they? How many of them? They have failed to tell us which guns they come from. Did they come from Crooks's gun? And I don't really want to get into all of that, but we have paid attention to many citizen investigators. Number one, to see what methods they're using to get accountability, to get the truth out there, so that would help us, that we can apply to race, so we can get the truth more out there. And let me see, I haven't even seen if I'm on. See, doesn't even seem to be working. Hopefully I'm on. Yeah, I'm on now. Okay. So absolutely, I can see comments now. Sorry. I don't have really a talent to do these podcasts, right? I'm just doing them. And absolutely, along with living life, right? I'm just doing them. And I have one objective. absolutely to tell the truth as best as we are learning it in order to get Richard's remains and hold those that did this accountable. And it seems that it's the same pattern over and over again. It is those that you depend on to respond to these terrible things, a rogue group, a breakaway group, a breakaway from their oath, a breakaway from God, a breakaway from esprit de corps, a breakaway from their country, a breakaway from humanity. It's a breakaway group. It's a breakaway from the law. They're lawless. A breakaway from decency. They are like a sex cult. They are totally like a sex cult. And it's a breakaway group within the response team, the security, safety response team that are the criminals. You see that in Butler, Pennsylvania. Look at that lady that's behind Trump, that everyone is like, wait a minute, something's very fishy with her. I looked her up. A group of citizen investigators looked her up. She's FBI. She's connected to Salt Lake City, Utah. Again, connected to the Mormon congregation. And, you have to have funding. You have to have political leverage. You have to have resources to fund even like the media portion of this, because you see the media is being controlled. They're not asking questions like they should be of these cases. They're not, because they're controlled. And if they do, they're retaliated and they do lose their jobs, and they are, it's just so terrible. They are that's why when people say, well, where's the media? Where's the media? Well, they're afraid. They are just doing what they are being told to do, and they're not being investigative journalists. They might be a little bit, but they're not putting those stories out there like they should. And it takes a lot of courage to do it. A lot of courage, because you're going to have to go out on your own. How are you going to make a living if you've been blackballed? And the media, if you're media, and that's all you know is being media, and you see that they have given these high positions in the media to people that are up to no good. Not that they want to get the truth out there, not that they want to better the community, restrain criminal activity, and of course the criminal trafficking. Not that they want to help the children that are being so abused and tortured in all of this. I've been saying, 85,000 missing children. I'm hearing now it's in the hundreds of thousands, hundreds of thousands. We have 70, almost 70 a day, which is like 500 a week of unaccompanied children. Where are they going? What are people doing with these children? And, when you're alone as a child, it is it's very horrible to be alone in life. When you get sick, when you get incapacitated, who's going to wipe your tears? Who's going to help feed you? We were having to feed my father. And we absolutely turned our house into like a mini hospital. Because absolutely during that whole COVID farce, we were not going to let my dad be separated from his loved ones who know him and respect him and love him and understand if he's going through something difficult. They can reach through our memories to understand what's going on, to help him better, to love him better. It was really the best and hardest thing we've ever done. And those great grandchildren coming in, the family members being able to come in, our church members being able to come in, our priests being able to come in, unhindered, unhindered by any absurd rules that they want to enforce, but yet we have 14-year-old girls being pimped out and girls being brought in. And I'm sure that no one looked at their IDs to see how old they were. Girls being brought into the barracks for these so-called parties. That's going on, and that's, looking the other way. But absurd for medical, it was just the most ridiculous thing. Would separate family when family needed to come together the most during an emergency, the last days of life. No way were we going to let that happen. And no way are we going to let Bob Moore and others who will have to answer to God for their evil, very evil, evil deeds, dictate a narrative that is false of our son, who's a hero. Absolutely clean record. If he was troubled about anything, it was troubled about the children being abused and trafficked. Troubled about the weapons and the ammunition being smuggled. The fraud, waste, and abuse going on Fort Bliss. If he was troubled about anything, it was about the horrors and the blow that was being perpetrated onto our young sons and daughters that volunteered to serve in the military, and the SOPs were not being followed, and there were complacencies, and the command sergeant major was acting like a pimp with his general, Major General Clem Coward. In my opinion, that's what they were acting like, bringing in these young girls. That's not their job. And morale is not strengthened because of that. Not, especially when there were rapes going on in the barracks. Yes, rapes going on in the barracks. And then they would retaliate against those who didn't think it was right that they were raped. And, so, uh, they're going to have to answer to God for their absolutely um, degenerate actions. Degenerate actions. And I'm using that word because they are working to unbuild, to take down, to kill the soul, kill esprit de corps, kill SOPs, kill disciplined soldiers, meaning the 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 adjective of being disciplined, to let things just run amok. And that's how people, our soldiers, are killing each other, raping each other, bringing in these young girls, pimping them out, participating in fraud, waste, and abuse, in the weapon smuggling, in creating child porn. We've got to go to the top, because the top is orchestrating it. It's orchestrating the destruction. It's orchestrating the retaliation. Richard has a totally clean record. Not one thing on it. Not one. It's so clean. And yet, they tried from the guard mount. From the guard mount, they made him out to be such a criminal that Anthony Swafford, an MP, wanted the worst for our family, because he just thought, oh, if they have such a son, then I know what kind of character he is, and why even, look for him. And the way he treated us, he doesn't know our family. He doesn't know who Richard is, and he doesn't know his duty. And I know he's young, and I know he was being stupid. Absolutely stupid, and that his training was so off that he didn't even realize he was being stupid. Because as an MP, as a fellow soldier, it doesn't matter. When a soldier is in need, when a soldier is missing, we have something called esprit de corps, the Medal of Honor ethos. You don't ask a soldier that is in need, hey, do I like you or not? What kind of character do you have, before you run out there and save him? You don't do that. You go and search for him. You go and save him. And then afterwards, when the emergency is over, then you might ask some questions. But you see, their training was, we're going to smear Richard and others. It wasn't just Richard, because Glendon Oakley Jr. got totally smeared, and he was found dead April 8th, 2020. April 8th, 2020. And when you follow the dots, when you put your yarn up with all the pictures and all the addresses and everything, Bliss Avenue is big and bold. Many addresses there, big and bold. So much up to no good on that street. So much criminal activity on that street. And it all needs to be investigated. And it's totally connected with Richard's case and the Walmart mass shooting case. And it's home of so many, so many up to no good. And Richard's case was an orchestrated murder retaliation, an orchestrated retaliation and murder and cover up. And the Walmart case was an orchestrated mass murder and subsequent cover up, right? Let's put it on ice. Let's put it on ice. Let's not do one thing. And now we know, just the other day at Butler, Pennsylvania, it's the same pattern, an orchestrated, set up assassination attempt. And who is, who are people like really pointing fingers at? Not me. Oh, well, maybe I am. They're pointing their fingers at the rogue. Oh. That was an alert. At the rogue. And yeah, this is an alert. The response teams. Rogue criminal members of the response teams. Our response teams need to be vetted. They need to be vetted. When the canine cop wants to make a traffic stop at midnight, when you have Danae Katzen connected to Jonathan Ambrose, connected to KTSM, connected to Rosa Maria Valdez Garcia, connected to Bliss Avenue, connected to the Walmart case, connected to Mario Raskin Ortiz, the chief medical examiner, who was in charge of every deceased person, victim of the Walmart shooting. And he cannot be trusted with what he wrote for cause and manner of death. He cannot be trusted, and he's connected to Veronica Escobar. And you have the Harts, who are known for reporting late, very late, not in a timely manner, but reporting that in their house, in their family history, and corroborated with other communications, that they're engaged in incest. That's Dallas Hart in uniform, y'all. That's Dallas Hart in uniform. Isn't that illegal? But are they complacent in addressing that? They were. They let it go. They let it go, but they made you wear this thing, right? Or don't go visit your loved one with absurd reasons. We know in the FBI complaint that Leilani Hart wrote, with the incest was also the sexual assault of a 7-year-old in her master bedroom by multiple members of her household. We know that in that family, in the Hart family, that has been going on for generations. That's in the communications. We know that there's some real questions surrounding the death of Etty. We know that there's a connection with Nidal Baim, the man that was working for Western Frontier Western Frontier Trading, selling up to $3 million worth of ammunition to the El Paso Police Department, who is the father-in-law of Lieutenant Colonel Bradford Bugado in the G3 of the 32nd ADCOM. Yet Nadal Baim has a record. Richard doesn't have a record, but he has a record. He has a record. And his son-in-law is in G3. Is in G3 of the 32nd ADCOM. And he's selling up to $3 million. Hey, let me put in a bid for up to $3 million. We can provide you with up to $3 million worth of ammunition. El Paso Police Department. And is an agent of the FBI who walks into the Dollar General and says, I'm FBI. These flyers you have of Richard Halliday, you can take them down. That means, you know what he's saying there? He's saying the search is over. When you tell someone and order someone to take down the flyers, that means the search is over. They found him, he said. We found him. The FBI found him in Juarez, Mexico. We called the Department of State. That's us. We called the Department of State, and the Department of State corroborated what Nadal Baim was saying, that the FBI found Richard in Mexico, in Juarez. And we know that it's partial remains. And we know that Lieutenant General Sean Bernabe, who needs to be stripped from his uniform, stripped from those stars, is totally up to no good. At Christmas time for 2020, he was looking for Richard's remains at the mock Afghanistan village there on Fort Bliss. And he might have been looking for some other stuff. He might have been cleaning up some extra evidence. Because what happened in those little bunkers? What happened in those little tactical move storage units? What was there? And connecting to other areas. Where we have been told that Richard's remains were. It might still be. But I think they don't give a declaration of death, of murder, of Richard on Fort Bliss, without having his remains and knowing. And we want his remains. And the huge problem that they have, not that we have. We want justice in the Walmart case just as much as in Richard's case. But their problem is, of course, they didn't want another Vanessa Guillen situation. But they also have the Walmart case, the Walmart mass shooting. And it's not what you think it is. And, it needs to be written all out. Call it a book, whatever. But people need to understand what happened on August 3rd. 2019. 5 years ago. 5 years ago. And they can start understanding what happened at the Walmart mass shooting 5 years ago by understanding what happened on Bliss Avenue in El Paso, Texas. That's my opinion. And I've been told, watch out. Watch out. You're talking too much truth to power. Too much truth. These are murderers. Yes. These are dangerous people. They are murderers. They murdered my son. You know, you just don't recover from that. You just don't give up when every day new information from so many people that have been hurt and have, live in El Paso and want El Paso to be wonderful, right? They want it to be wonderful, but these rogue response group members, criminal members, rogue response criminal members. And I'll put Jules Tuganon Chan in that group. You don't get to be X, Mr. X, when you're in the situation. You don't get to be Mr. X when you influence, when you're an influencer, and yet you're in security, health and safety, and you're in the military, and you have top secret clearance, or you have some kind of security clearance, and you're in the medical, you just, come on. We are a republic. We are a republic. We are a government for the people, by the people, of the people. And that means that we have open records. That means we have transparency. We're not, I'm going to be secret. No, you have influence. We need to know who you are. You have authority. We need to know who you are. You have security clearance. We need to know who you are. And all of this hiding and manipulating official records. Let me delete my LinkedIn real quick. Let me delete all my presence. All my friends that are these cybersecurity people. They're going to help me hide everything, so that no one knows who I am. That's up to no good. Criminal activity. That's not how things work. And they might say, well, yeah, it does. We do it. We're criminals. Well, there's a lot of us that live in this country that say no. We're fed up. We're awake now. Not woke, we're awake. And I get a lot of messages saying, do not stop, do not stop. And, I'm not claiming to do this perfectly, but I can tell you this. We are documenting, filing, documenting, filing. We are documenting and filing. And there are ongoing and active state and federal investigations going on right now, and we need more of them. We need more of them. So please, when you know things, contact us, let us know, or document it and file it. File it with the agencies, and they're going to give you the runaround, and they're going to give you these little messages that seem to say that they're not going to help you, but do not give up. Keep on them. Keep on them and say, no, 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 you can't push this away, because they are scared. They need to be driven to do the right thing. They are scared of retaliation. They've suffered and seen others be under so much retaliation to allow the criminal network to get away with their criminal activities. It's like a bunch of bullies. And so we need to understand that they're not going to respond to us like, oh, somebody was raped in the barracks. Oh, somebody was murdered on Fort Bliss. Oh, they're doing criminal trafficking? Absolutely not. I'm right on it. That's a dream world. They're not going to help you that way. You've got to really, be very strategic. And we've tried all kinds of things to get the word out, to try to dry up the money flow, the personnel flow to these criminal networks. And maybe I'm telling the strategy, but everyone knows those strategies. You know, you have a lot of tanks. If you don't have fuel for the tanks can't work. You have a bunch of guns, you don't have ammunition, the guns don't work. This whole thing with FitFam El Paso, this whole thing with the SB4 case, this whole thing with Bill Hicks, bleeding his attorneys because they're like, I can't work for a impersonator usurper who likes to tamper with elections, who likes to obstruct justice. I mean, that's what he's doing, and perjury. And so they're like, okay, I can't work. Well, he's going to the law schools and wanting to recruit. No. It's like right now we have a recruiting problem in the military because, people understand what's going on in the military, that if you want esprit de corps, if you want patriotism, you're going to be retaliated against. If you want to actually win a war, you're going to be retaliated against. They're in loser mode. The DA office there in El Paso is in loser mode. The FBI there in El Paso is in loser mode. The IG are in loser mode. The CID is in dirty loser mode. And there's more. And there's more. So you just have to don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged by that. Be encouraged. Because, you don't clean your house when your house is clean. You don't roll up your sleeves and mow the lawn and do your yard work when your lawn is pristine. We have to roll up our sleeves and put the full armor of God on, put those boots on. That's what I've been telling Yvonne Rosales, because we need her. We need her on our team. And it doesn't matter if you're, if you identify as a Republican or a Democrat. It doesn't matter. You need to identify right now as an American, as a law-abiding American, because we have a lot of unlawful, rogue response teams, criminal response teams up to no good. And so we need to work together, those that want a successful country and a law-abiding country, to, roll up their sleeves, and we need to get to work. Put on our boots. And legally, because the law is for us. Remember, the law is for the government, of the people, by the people, and for the people. That's why we defend the Constitution. The law is not for the criminals. It's a gift to us. And that's the beauty of it. And I think we've been propagandized or hypnotized or lied to, misled, that we can't win. And we can. And if you want to know what we have gotten out of this, they never wanted to give us the declaration of death, y'all. But we got it. And now we're going to get his remains. And I don't know how long it's going to take. But we're going to get answers, and we're going to get accountability. And we're going to restrain this rogue criminal response team, quote unquote. I mean, if they can do what they did in Butler and then sit in Congress and talk the way they talked, I mean, it was disgraceful. We've got some work to do. Legally. Call your congresswoman, call your congressman. It doesn't matter if they're, look, Veronica Escobar. Oh my goodness. But it gives them, it documents. It documents. And the documentation is the evidence. And that's why they like to take over our media. And they don't like us to post. That's why they're hiding our, shadow banning our posts, because every post, every time a news person is courageous and writes a story that is, for the most part, the truth, they go crazy. They have to control the narrative, what is written down. And that's why they'll pay even money to get Google to put it on top. They'll pay the money because that is evidence. That's evidence. That's the documentation. And Richard documenting and collecting evidence was their worst nightmare. So document, collect evidence, file, report it, and file it. And then say a prayer and let God do the rest. And keep at them, even when you get, oh, we can't answer your open records request, or they ignore you, right? They ignore you. Just keep on, keep on, right? And they might say, oh, we can't answer you until like September or something. You're like, no, no. Doesn't work that way. Doesn't work that way. We're going to file more. We're going to file another complaint. How many crimes do you want to commit, huh? These rogue criminal response teams. How many crimes do you want? How many crimes do you want to have to explain yourself to God for? Because that's what it's going to be. That's what it's going to be. So, thank you so much, everybody. Let's read Danielle's comments here. Thank you, Danielle, for coming on. U.S. Army needs to give you Richard Halliday's remains. Absolutely. And charge his murderers. Absolutely. And that will be the exposure of the Walmart case too. And when the Walmart case gets exposed, that will give us accountability in Richard's case. It's just really they're so connected like that. Um, and if you want to know, just go do your research through Bliss Avenue. It's right there. I mean, they're deleting a lot of things that we've already saved and that, but a lot of their LinkedIn, they really are afraid of their LinkedIns. And they just delete, 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 they just sanitize. And to us, that's clear indication that they have something to hide, right? His leadership, I mean, especially when you have this beautiful LinkedIn, right? All of your CV is on there, right? It's just beautiful. And you want to delete that? That's interesting, right? His leadership had no esprit de corps, no Medal of Honor ethos, just plain evil. Absolutely. And Major General Clem Coward, absolutely. I hold him very responsible for the retaliation, the breach in security, and Richard's murder. Absolutely. I hold him accountable. Okay, the fact that Richard Halliday's leadership has done nothing for justice for Richard and the family, in my opinion. Yeah, they weren't even presented to us, right? It was 343. We're going to give you 343. Wait a minute. No. 143 is very different from 243 and 343. 143 is, the game. They're the ones that get all the fuel. They're the ones that get all, that was really important. That was really important. So 143 is very important. Dallas Hart should have been marched right in front of us as Richard's platoon leader. He's Richard's platoon leader. But they were engaged in very bad conduct and criminal conduct. Criminal conduct. And they protected the criminal, and then they allowed a breach in security for Richard, a distinguished honor graduate. Doesn't matter, but in his case, that's, I have to say it, because that's what he earned. They breached security for him, retaliated against him, and allowed him to be murdered. I believe there was even an order for him to be murdered. Yes, absolutely. And all this time, think about it, every day that goes by, you've got almost 70 children that are unaccompanied coming through that border. I talked to a nice lady today. Her sister's son just died from a fentanyl-laced aspirin. Just devastated. Every day, the more this is why the Mormon congregation, the leadership, and why is it that this lady up in Butler is It's like, whoa, why is there this connection to the Mormon congregation? Is there like a rogue group in that Mormon congregation? Because, when I was growing up, I loved Donny Osmond. I know, laugh at me, whatever, but I did when I was a young girl. I loved Donny Osmond. Um, a little bit of rock and roll, right? A little bit of rock and roll. Um, yeah, I think the Mormon congregation there in El Paso has a lot of explaining to do. A lot of explaining to do. So thank you so much. God bless you. And um, yeah, we'll be back tomorrow, God willing. And, I'm so sorry. 5 years, 5 years in the Walmart case. And they've just, strung it along for the people of El Paso. Thank you so much for watching, and please share. God bless you. Bye bye.